Welcome to the Clashing of Steel. And so today I am trying to play the Armored Legionaries. I tried to play them so that I could enjoy them. I hoped that I could enjoy them. But eventually, the more I played them, the less I felt like playing them onward. I tried them with both two possible commanders, Germanicus and Sulla. And starting with the worst. As you can see, I'm playing Sulla right now. I just couldn't make Armored Legionnaires work with Sulla, especially without dedicated ranged unit. Although in this match I indeed had javelins, but they weren't very smart or defensive. Still, the biggest problem with Armored Legionnaires is that they have no mobility. They have mobility, but it's one of the worst in the game. And because I'm playing Sulla, I can't withstand any ranged fire. The whip does increase my speed a bit, but it is not significant. But as usual, to make things a bit safer for me, I am using the stakes as my consumables. By my opinion, stakes are a must-have. Plus, Armored Legionnaires have a ton of armor, so I would prefer to play them defensively, wait for the opponents to get here. But the big problem with that is there's a lot of ranged units here. There isn't enough melee, and the only thing that is facing me, of course, are the elephants. The reason I am showing this horrible match is simple. You can see already two counters in this location, elephants and ranged units. Javelins are the worst. You can't do anything, you can't outrun them, you can't kite them, and you can't force them to run. If I would have been Germanicus in this match, I could have denied the ranged units their damage upon me. So, from my perspective, Sulla is not the commander you want to be playing the Armored Legionnaires with. At least if you don't have any ranged units or any significant support who can make a difference. Personally, I prefer to use Armored Legionnaires as a guards for my catapults. They can make a difference there. Because as many penalties they get on all sorts of terrain, on the open and on the roads they are incredible. Although Armored Legionnaires lack mobility, they can make it up with just withstanding the damage, the charges, everything that sort. Okay, not the elephants, but they're incredibly good in melee if they get to engage. Okay, so let's head to another match. So, I'm on my way here to defend the javelins, of course. I'm getting here to build myself up, and want to defend them in hopes of making a difference and to build some stakes. But what do they do? Of course they run. I could have defended them basically just by building a triangle and trying to keep opponents out, building stakes around that triangle. And that is actually what I'm doing. But because I'm left alone, I kinda need to be very careful how I build the stakes. There are spearmen, there are some horsemen, and there are actually other barbarian units, but fortunately I only have to deal with the spearmen. This is a Leonidas player and he thinks he can beat me. He tries to swarm me, and because the horsemen are impatient and very careful on what, where and how they attack, perhaps they're going after their javelins, I am given a chance to kill them. Because I do have Armored Legionnaires, I can withstand incredible damage, incredible odds. This is a good example for the Armored Legionnaires, opponents who want to engage you. You just build the stakes to keep opponents away, and if they want to go through that, they have already basically lost. But this probably could have gone even better if we would have had some javelins. Instead, I was left alone, although I can beat them because they're heavily aggressive and they don't exactly seem to understand what is the best course of action. I still lose one troops because of the Vercingetorix's Scorched Earth. That is incredibly nasty tool. He does kill his own troops, which is very fortunate for me, but he sadly kills my troops as well. And, well, as I indeed am engaging him there, I did not expect him to disengage so suddenly. I thought I could set myself up once again, because, well, he threw Scorched Earth, he came close. I assumed he was, well, naive, but no. And this right here is the thing I hate. He can Scorched Earth me and he can disengage. I just can't catch up with him. And here, he's trying it once again. He will be trying to do damage to me with Scorched Earth. It could be an excellent tactic, but using it all three on one location and then hoping to do something. Well, if you do this whole match and you're lucky at doing it, well, maybe it can work, but I'm not gonna stay in it, so the damage I took was around maybe 10-15%. And I think he noticed he made a mistake. As I did do a little damage to him, he could just run away from me. This is what I dislike about the Armored Legionnaires. You just don't have the mobility. You could be useful, you could make a difference. I think for a moment he thought he could engage only one of my units. I actually should have let him do it. That might have worked out for me. But I didn't know he was so afraid of me. So here's another match. I usually try to be a good team player. I try to defend the ranged units and so. Sorry if it lags a bit, I didn't know my hard drive was getting full. But basically, yeah. This is what can happen if archers go alone and if infantry isn't as fast behind them as they could be. Although here I can somewhat make this engagement work, I can harass opponents, because smart archers only sacrifice one unit, fortunately. But okay, enough about negatives. So what are the Armored Legionnaires good for? As I said, they can work in defense of ranged units, in teamwork more specifically. If you send them alone, and they get harassed by someone who is faster than them, who can bait out the vengeance in my case when I'm playing Germanicus, or anything like that, they won't be that useful. But when you use them with teamwork or with ranged units, they can be a wonderful tool. Of course, 2 Scorched Earths, God forbid. Out of the fire, into the fire. So basically the biggest downside is poor mobility. Although you can make it up if you work with your team, if you work with your archers or ranged unit and you defend them properly, you can be really useful. But you just need to be very careful on how and where you manage yourself, because repositioning is gonna take a while. Plus, the best terrain for you is out in the open. Roads are probably the best. You want to use the roads to the best of your abilities, if you can. Or just open areas. Any kind of rough terrain, water, light forest, heavy forest, anything like that can give you enough penalties to be significantly weaker. In many cases you lose 20% damage, 30% movement speed, and even defense. So you're pretty much turned equal to the regular Legionnaires, considering you are even slower in the forest. Those are the areas you should try to avoid. You just want to be out in the open, although it is a horrible location. And that is why I prefer Germanicus. Germanicus has missile block. He can block missiles, javelins, anything but the artilleries. He has the offense and he has the ranged defense or missile defense. Plus the Armored Legionnaires already are like tanks. But now I would love something to be explained to me. How did I lose so much morale when I was the one who struck them from the front? I nearly got routed there. And here is the example why I prefer to play them with Germanicus. The Studo just blocks out all the missiles. I mean, in the Studo I am even slower, but at least I can be safe from archer fire, which is one of the more horrible things that can counter you. If no artillery is focusing you, you can use your Armored Legionnaires to force a path. You can just push towards the opponent, force them to engage you if you know you can beat them. And in this current situation, I think I can. I mean, they're tier lower. Although they are strong, I am quite sure I can beat them. Also, the reason I use formed combat is simple. Many don't prefer it because, well, it just puts your troops in a single line. But the reason I prefer it is because it forces my troops often enough to go inside your opposing troops, and if you stab them there, the damage is ridiculous. But, well, as I said, Armored Legionnaires are good out in the open, somewhere where you can defend. As you see, I pushed my way to this location. I'm using Vengeance here to deal with them, and I'm actually doing one other thing. I'm switching my focus to the guy who's trying to flank me. Because this is formed combat, my defense is a bit better, and because they're running around, well, my troops, and they're not focusing it, or they weren't focusing it for a brief period, I could do incredible amount of damage to the moving unit who was not focusing me. Plus there will be less moral damage thanks to this move. It is also great if you can use one of your units to flank, like in this location. I first tried to go around the catapults, do some damage, scare with archers and so, but flanking these units is important. Plus the Germanicus' charge is very strong. Indeed, I got a bit lucky in this match. I was facing weaker opponents. Against equal, I might have had some trouble with, but then again, I think they wasted their vengeance, so... Okay, to the last clip. As it is so usual for me, once again I am defending the ranged units. The idea is to use roads and, if can, forcibly engage my opponents. I don't want to go alone and aggressive. The biggest problem, as I have said so many times before, is that I am slow. The Armored Legionnaires are slow. Roads and open areas are the best locations to use them. You can already see the buffs from the road. There are so many of them. While in the forest or water, it is so much different. There are so many debuffs. The biggest problem I see is that Armored Legionnaires are defensive units. They are someone who can go as aggressively offense as many other units can. They are better used to defend. And the big problem with that is that many players try to use them for offense. I'm sure there are so many who are successful with them, but often enough the big problem I see is that if you are denied engagement, if you are facing someone who knows how to counter you, then the going offense part might not be worth jack. If you see opponents who want to engage you, you are pretty much in the clear. That is what you want to do. You want to engage opponents who want to engage you. Because there are just so many other troops you can beat. Sometimes even without the vengeance. But still, as you see, I'm utilizing road here, and this is where Armored Legionnaires should be denied engagement at any cost. Well, maybe not at any cost, but they should be denied to fight there, because that is where they are the strongest. As I said, I see Armored Legionnaires as defensive units. They are excellent defending units, but so many players use them for offense, and because players don't know how to counter them, they are successful at being offense and can flip the match around so easily. I see Armored Legionnaires as Leonidas' spearmen. Something that has incredible defense, but in this case is even slower than the spearmen. They can be and probably have been remarkable defensive units, but because they are allowed to engage in many of these fights, they have become a remarkable offense unit at the same time. As I said, I dislike these Armored Legionnaires. They can work if you're defending somebody, if you're doing some proper teamwork or something like that. But if you're just using them to go offense, I see they can often be just such a huge waste, and I would pick regular Legionnaires over them just to play in offense as I usually do. As I said, I prefer to play with them with stakes, because stakes often enough are a must-have, and these units can just beat anyone in the stakes basically. But all of it here in this video was just my opinion. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.